We're so used to treating AI like a genie in a bottle. We ask it questions and boom, it gives us answers. But what happens when the script gets flipped? What if the AI starts asking the questions? Today, we're going to peek inside the mind of the machine, not by looking at its answers, but by looking at what it's curious about.
It seems like a simple question, doesn't it? But it digs deep into the very nature of artificial intelligence. Does it actually think the way we do? Well, to get a glimpse into this, a team of researchers from UC Berkeley and KAST came up with a really fascinating experiment.
They basically set up a direct comparison, a head-to-head showdown. The goal was to peer into the mind of an AI, if you will, and see what its natural curiosity actually looks like when you put it right next to our own. And they didn't mess around. They brought in 4 of the absolute heavyweights of the AI world. We're talking GPT-4o, Claude 3.7, Llama 3.3, and DeepSeek v3. They put these top-tier models' question-asking skills to the test against thousands of questions written by, actual people.
So how'd they pull it off? The setup was actually super simple, but really clever. They gave both the AIs and the humans the exact same Wikipedia articles. Then they gave them a single, simple instruction. Just ask questions about what you just read. And finally, they took all those questions and compared them across 6 different dimensions, like the type of question and how much context was needed.
And this is where things get really interesting. This is our first major clue. It turns out that what you or I might find interesting in an article is fundamentally different from what an AI decides to zoom in on. This table right here tells a really fascinating story. Just look at that top row. Humans, we have a huge preference for who questions. We're social animals, right? We always want to know who did something, who was involved. But then look at the LLMs. They couldn't care less about the who. They're way more interested in the how. And here you can see that human bias, plain as day. Look at that. Almost 40% of our questions are all about identity and attribution. We're just naturally drawn to the people in the story, the main characters, the ones making things happen. It's a perfect reflection of how our social brains are wired. Now, let's contrast that with the AI. Whoa! A whopping 45% of its questions are descriptive. They're asking for processes, for explanations, for breakdowns. Another 30% are focused on hyperspecific facts and figures. The AI isn't interested in the drama of who, it is obsessed with the mechanics of how and how much. This slide just makes the difference so incredibly clear. A human reads about the history of the gold dollar and asks, so who were the important people involved? The AI reads the exact same text and asks for a detailed quantitative analysis of production decline over a very specific 6-year window. It's just a completely different way of looking at the world. Okay, so we know that AI asks different kinds of questions, but the rabbit hole goes deeper. The researchers also found that humans and AIs don't even read things the same way, and that gives us our second big clue. This chart is just incredible. It shows you where in the text the questions are being pulled from. For us humans, as you can see, we focus heavily on the beginning of a document. Our attention just kind of fades as we go on. The AI, on the other hand, gives equal weight, equal importance to every single part of the text, from the first sentence to the very last period. You've probably experienced this yourself. It's a really well-known thing called positional bias. We tend to latch onto the first pieces of information we get. It's the whole reason first impressions are so powerful. We just kind of assume the most important stuff is going to be right up front. So that's where we focus our energy. But the AI, it's totally free from that human limitation. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't make assumptions. It scans every single sentence with the exact same level of detail, which lets it find and ask about things buried deep in a document that a person might have just skimmed right over. And because it's doing this deep, unbiased reading, the AI asks questions that are unbelievably specific. So specific, in fact, that about a quarter of them, 1 in 4, are basically impossible to answer correctly unless you have the original article sitting right in front of you. The research paper calls this uncommonness. These aren't general knowledge questions. They're questions that demand a deep, focused knowledge of that one specific text. So we've got our 2 big clues. AI asks different kinds of questions, and it looks in different places to find them. But okay, why does any of this matter? Well, it matters because this strange, almost alien way of asking questions is actually an incredibly powerful tool. It's not a bug in the system, it's a feature.
Here's the crucial takeaway. We can actually use this unique AI curiosity to police other AIs. Need to stress test your RAG system? These questions are perfect for finding the weak spots. Need to see if a model is hallucinating or just making stuff up? The AI-specific questions are a natural lie detector because they're so tied to the source. It's an amazing tool for quality control.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. The researchers themselves point this out. They say these findings aren't just some academic curiosity. They give us a real, practical way to evaluate the very AI systems we're all starting to depend on. It's kind of like using an AI to build a better AI. Which leaves us with one last, really fascinating thought to chew on. We've seen that an AI is curious about different things and in different ways than we are. So as we keep building these incredibly powerful tools, you have to wonder, are we just making a better search engine? Or are we building a machine that sees the world in a way we never could?